guys and welcome. So you might have been using waypoints to maybe do more complex maneuvers smoothly, but the other reason that we love them is to repeat flight paths to show maybe changes in construction progress over time, or to show a scene or subject at different times of the day. Now, unless you're using a drone with RTK compatibility like the Inspire 3, the accuracy of repeated shots can vary depending on your launch locations as well as other factors like wind. So in this video, I'll be giving you some tips, tricks, and the process on how to edit your waypoints to look seamless. Now, just before we jump in, I wanted to let you know that we have launched a drone video masterclass, our most comprehensive drone video course ever that goes deep into the best cinematic settings, technical aspects of drone video like resolutions, bit rates, and sensor sizes, cinematography tips, key drone movements, how to shoot for specific subjects, as well as using intelligent flight modes effectively, which is where you will also find an extended tutorial of this process, as well as footage that you can download and follow along at home. So whether you've never flown, just picking up your first drone, or have been flying for a while and looking to turn your passion into a career, we have links to that as well as other courses and drone deep dives in the description below. Just want to give you some other tips when setting up your waypoints to make sure you get the best results when editing these. Firstly, make sure that you save your waypoints and name them clearly so you know the location and drone movement. Next, always turn on your drone and take off at the same place every time you return to a location. Next, set your last waypoint to hover instead of returning to home or stopping the recording to give you some extra time to play with at the end of the clip. Lastly, if you're shooting in dusk or at night and you're wanting to use your night mode to boost the low light capabilities, you will need to manually start the recording before the first waypoint, because if you have this set to record on your first waypoint, the drone by default will record in the default standard recording mode without the night mode functionality. Of course, you can only shoot in normal color mode in night mode, but it's still pretty great, especially if you have a nice glow on the horizon. Alright guys, so without further ado, let's jump on in. Now I'm going to be using Premiere Pro as the editing software for this, but you should be able to do the same process using Final Cut or DaVinci Resolve. Alright, so we're working in Premiere Pro today and we're going to be using the editing workspace, and I like to use the editing workspace just because it's a cleaner workspace. It's very minimal. We've just got the sequence assets over here, we've got the sequence timeline down here, we've got the window, and then anything additional that we want to add, I've just added Lumetri color as we'll be using that a little bit later on. If you don't have the editing workspace, you can just go up to Window, and this is of course on Mac, Workspaces and Editing, but you should, if you are in Windows, you should be able to find it in the same location. Alright, so let's start here. I have imported my waypoints, and we're going to be using these ones here. I'm just going to drag and drop these down onto the timeline. Now currently this timeline is set at 4K, and we like to edit everything in 4K, even if we're going to be exporting in 1080p, because you will get just a little bit higher quality overall if you are reducing that size when you're exporting, instead of having a 1080p sequence with a 4K footage scaled to size and then exporting. So we recommend that. You might need to do a little bit of scaling depending on how your waypoints were captured, but regardless, 4K sequence with 4K footage exported as 1080 or exported then at 4K will always result in a higher image quality. So looking at what we are working with here, we have 3 waypoints. We've got what seems to be morning, sunset, and then we've got night. Now, when these were captured, the way waypoints are captured is you can decide if you want the recording to start at the waypoint 1 and then the recording to stop at the final waypoint. The way that these were captured, we did have recording starting at waypoint 1 for these first 2 here. But because we want to utilize night mode in the night setting to really benefit from the low light capabilities of the Mavic 3 Pro with a base ISO of 800, the way that Waypoints works, and we're not sure if this is the glitch, that you need to actually start recording before the drone's recording of the first waypoint starts. Otherwise it will just default to regular recording. So we didn't have the waypoint starting at the exact same position on this night mode version. So all that means is usually you'd be able to line up the clips on top of each other. All right, these 3 clips are all going to be starting at the exact same position. The reason they are all different lengths, instead of stopping at the very end, we like the drone just to hover in place, just to add a couple extra seconds at the end of the clip, just so we can let our audience take in the view. All right, so for the purpose of this exercise, we're not going to use all 3 of these clips. I like the contrast between the day and the night the most. Really, the only detail I like about this middle one is the rollers here, but we've got a nice little boat in this section here, so I think we're okay to remove this one. So I'm just going to delete this one, and we're just going to do the waypoints between these 2 here. Right, so we know that these 2 clips aren't going to be able to be lined up just by placing these on top of each other, because I had to manually start and stop the night waypoint. So the best way to try and align these clips is to find a point on the frame that you can easily try and match between the 2, and then make the tweaks and adjustments from there. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to scrub through this. I'm going to find a point where I think we might be able to align the images. And the important thing to remember, depending on your drone's movement and the way that parallax works, from the subjects closer to the frame moving a lot quicker than those at the back, that I want to try and align something that is in the foreground. I don't want to align anything in the background, because as you can see, the background is not really moving too much, and it's going to be a lot easier to align these background elements with the elements that we're going to be using shortly than it is if I'm not able to at least align the foreground elements first. So let's go with the foreground elements. And I think the first thing I'm going to do, I might try and align maybe these light posts here. So I've just scrubbed here to try and get it to this point here. And if you want to get a closer look at any time of this subject here, and we will want to, of the frame, you can press this little squiggly tilde key, and that'll just full frame it. So when you're sort of working with the elements that we're going to be using to adjust this shortly, that's really handy just to get nice and close to the image. Of course, you can also fit and zoom into 400% or whatever you like, but with the elements that we're going to be using, it's just nice to get a nice large screen like that. So that's just that little squiggly line. All right, so I've lined it up to about here. I think that's good. So we want to try and get these aligned there in both frames. So I'm just going to get the razor tool. I've just pressed C to do that, or you can use this little razor tool here, click on that there. So we've done that, and now this one I'm going to do the same, and now thankfully, because it is nighttime, those are nice and lit up. So I'm just going to scrub. I think it's about, there we go. Razor that. Great. Now I'm just going to place those on top of each other. Now I'm going to place the element that I am going to be transitioning to at the top, as that's going to be the final element, and then I'm going to be placing the other one down below. Now, the way you can do transitions is you can of course wipe, and I'll show you what a wipe looks like. Now I'm just going to drop that down. So if you go into your effects panel, and if you don't have effects, just go up to window and find effects there. I'm just going to type in wipe, and we're just going to drag and drop that here. And I'm just going to get a little bit closer just to drag this out again, just to show you sort of one of the transition options that you can do. So it's going to go like this and then wipe across here, which is fine. If you do it at speed, it actually doesn't look too bad. But I think the most impressive thing is to have a seamless dissolve. So at the moment, let's see just what a dissolve will look like. So again, I'm just going to type up here, cross dissolve, drop it here, just move it out a little bit. So just a gradual dissolve over time, just to sort of see the night change. Now, of course, you can see this isn't aligned very well, but that's okay. That was expected. We're not using an RTK drone like the Inspire 3, so depending on where this drone is turned on and taking off from, even the direction that it's taking off from can affect the final waypoints. The drone will do its very best to get the same elevation and direction, but it's just the nature of the technology. It's not 100% accurate if you're not dealing with RTK technology. But that's okay, this is fine. We can definitely work with this. So I think a couple of things that I'm noticing here is the elements in the foreground still aren't lining up exactly. So this could probably tell me that I'm either a little bit too late or too early. Now, the elements that you actually want to focus on are the ones that draw the eye. So the things that have the highest contrast. So of course it's going to be the skyline. We want to make sure that those are aligned, and also the hero element here that we're focusing on, which is the stadium. These little elements down here, like the light posts, not as important. That's not where your eye is going to be drawn. So it's important just to focus on the elements that the eye will naturally be drawn to, and you'll just automatically, instinctually pick up that that isn't quite right, especially in a long dissolve. So I think what we're going to do is, I think that's a nice place to start. So that might be a good element. So what I want to try and do is just slip this footage a little bit to the left and right, just to see if I can get it a little bit more aligned, especially in the foreground. So I'm just going to press Y, or you can go over to the left hand side here, and this is the slip tool. And I'm just going to click on this footage here. I'm just going to drag it a little bit in a direction to see if I can get the footage. It doesn't look like that's allowing me to get any more. So I'm going to actually use this one to see if I can get the alignment of those. What I'm looking at are these lights here. I want to try and get them closer together. Doesn't look like that's allowing me to get that any closer. I'm going to delete this cross dissolve and just see if I can get a bit more space. Try and find a little bit more space in this cross dissolve. Alright, so Y. There we go. Okay. Now we can see here that it looks as if the drone's direction is slightly off. So it's heading in the same general direction, but the drone's attitude, so the yaw, is slightly off. Well, it might be actually the position of the drone is slightly off from where it began. So we can see here that these, as much as we can try, even though it looks like this is about the same level, looks like these are the same level, the drone's just slightly off place. But that is actually, that's fine. That was kind of expected using this kind of technology, but it's a great starting point. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you the secret weapon, the tool that you want to use to try and make your waypoints really work. So what we're going to do, we're going to go to the midway point, because that's going to give us the best representation of where this dissolve is going to be at its strongest. And you can just choose how quick or short you want this dissolve to be, but we're going to leave it about this length. And what we're going to do is we're going to search for the corner pin tool. If we drag and drop it onto both of these, what the corner pin tool is going to allow you to do is to warp and skew your image. Now this is something that you can easily do in After Effects if you wanted to. What this is going to do is allow you to do all the editing within Premiere Pro. So now we'll go over to Effects Controls, and this will give us all the options that we have for the footage that we have selected. If you don't have Effects Controls, just Window, Effects Controls. And if you click on the top here where it says Corner Pin, you can now see that these, I'm just going to make this full screen, you can now see that these elements down here are little targets on the corner that will now allow us to drag and manipulate the footage. So it's a super, super handy tool to be able to skew and warp your footage to allow it to align. Now what I like to do is start at the top left, up here, and then make our way around. Now you will find that when you start to make adjustments on each of these corners, it will affect the overall image as a whole. So just starting at the top left and working your way around, you may need to go back to one, but it's just, you need to start somewhere, right? I'm going to be making the adjustments to the first layer, because as much as I might need to change this layer here is what we're going to be finishing on. So I want to do as many adjustments to the previous layer as possible, at least first. So going to the corner pin, starting at the top left here, we can see that I'm going to have to drag this over to the left a bit to start to make these changes. But as you can see already, I'm starting to have these aligned pretty well. And I'm just going to make it full screen. And then now that I've done that top right, I'm going to start to adjust top left, sorry, I'm going to start to adjust the top right. And you'll see once you start to align things, the ghosting that you had before will start to become not as apparent. So as you can see already, that's actually looking pretty good. Look at that. I mean, already that's minimal adjustments, and we've already started to see a huge change. Now, as you can see, the highest contrast, of course, the skyline is looking pretty good. You can see a little bit of ghosting here, and then down here, the other contrast between the river and the bank, you can also see that. But again, you've also, just remember, it depends on how much time you want to put into this, but with the time that it's going to take to dissolve, people are going to just be focusing on the aspects that the eyes are drawn to. They're not really going to be drawn to the bank as much. And again, it depends on how long your dissolve is. You might not want it to go that long. You might want it to be a little bit shorter. And if that's the case, it's going to make your life a lot easier. That change is going to evolve and happen a lot quicker. All right, so let's keep moving on now, I think, and just move around to the next corner, just to keep this moving. So this one here. All right, I'm just going to go full screen again. And let's see if I need to make any more adjustments here. Now you'll see that because this element here, because it's already quite aligned, it might be actually a little bit difficult for me to realize. It might be a little bit difficult for me to line this up completely, but you can see that this has a lot of architectural details on here and lights. So it's going to be a lot harder for that to align, but it's looking pretty good. I can see these lights over here aren't exactly as we want them, so now I'm going to move it around to the next corner down here, see if we can align those lights a little bit more. There we go. There we go. So just moving it around until sort of that ghosting disappears. So yeah, that's looking pretty good. If I want to start that dissolve a little bit earlier, I mean, you can just simply move this back and then add the cross dissolve in a little bit earlier and just see what that looks like there. I want to see where these lights are at in the bottom here. Okay, it looks like they're actually close, but a little bit too early. So I might just see if I can skew this a little bit up, a little bit down a bit actually, to try and get these lights lined up. So those lights are now on those poles, and of course it's affecting everything else, so we're just going to adjust these accordingly. So it's really up to you how much time you want to spend adjusting this, but you can see how this corner pin tool really makes the adjustments, just tiny little adjustments. It did seem like it was off by a couple of full meters, but just looking at this now, let's go full screen. Let's have a look at the elements in the sky. So there's still a little bit of ghosting happening here, which I think we can amend. But the lights on the stadium, all these seem to be lining up. The lights down here are lined up enough for me. Even the bank here has now aligned a lot better. So it's just working your way around and making slight little adjustments. But I think at size, I think that should be pretty much good to go. So I'd be making those adjustments on this. Now making some adjustments to this right one, we can do that as well. Should be okay. Yeah, I think that's fine. Just making those slight little adjustments until you're happy. All right, that's looking pretty good. I think I could get it even better if I spent a little bit more time with it, but I just want to show you guys how powerful that corner pin tool really is. Now, what you might also notice is as you make adjustments, see in the bottom right here, we have skewed this enough that it's now actually affecting the frame. So we want to get rid of that, of course. So once you've decided on the adjustments, you're happy with the fade, you're happy with the cross dissolve, of course that's going to cross dissolve and delete that. I'm just going to, I think my start point is going to be about maybe here. Great. So what we want to do is we actually want to get rid of this. And the best way to do that is to scale it. So what we want to do is we want to nest both of these and scale them up to get rid of that. So just right click, nest, and we'll just go push in, name it what you want. And I'm just going to slightly scale this up, maybe 103. There we go, and that's now gotten rid of that element in the corner. Perfect. And now that we have that nested, we can actually do some speed ramping on this as well, just to give a little bit more extra impressiveness to the waypoint. So just right click here, we'll go down to time remapping speed. And I'm just going to do maybe get in for a couple of seconds, just a nice little push in. Probably speed ramp from here, and then maybe about here as the fade's about to start. And I'm just going to lift this up. There we go. And I'll just lift this up to about maybe 300%, 400%. Let's go 400%. There we go. Click on these and just make a nice little smooth in and out. And we can extend that out just to, so that's now going to do a little, there we go. And it will slowly ease out. Now the other thing, because I did the speed ramp, that's disappeared from the end, so I'll just extend this out as long as I can. There we go. I'm just going to delete this one here. There we go. So it's going to speed ramp up, and it's going to do a nice little stop there. There we go, guys. Now I'm just going to render this so we can watch it in real time, see how nice and smooth it is. All right, and now we can watch our work. All right, and a little speed ramp there, and then fading into the city. Now, I know that we can definitely get this even a little bit better. That's still a little bit off, but again, just wanted to show you the process, so you can tweak it as much as you want. All right, guys, there you have it, a seamless transition from day to dusk. Now, I hope you found some of these tips useful, and in the Drone Video Masterclass, we have another 2 locations that you can download and try for yourself. So if you're interested in learning about all there is to know about drones and turn your passion into a career, check out the link in the description below. All right, that's it from me, guys. Happy flying.